Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Victor, and for today's video, this is going to be the second part into how to do a tarot reading. Now, based on last week's video on how to do the tarot reading, I just want to make sure that based on these basic fundamentals that we had already set, that we are just kind of adding on to it by answering a few questions that were not covered there. For example, in this video, I want to cover through reversal cards. Do I want to read cards in reverse form? What are the pros and cons? Why do some people do it and why some people always want to do it? And then I also want to cover yes or no questions, especially how to tackle those using tarot cards. So that's going to be the chunk of what we're going to cover today. So before we get started, if this is the kind of content that you are really enjoying, please go ahead and subscribe into the channel. It really would mean a lot to me as I'm trying to bring some positivity into the internet and just trying to have a little bit of a corner of the internet where people can really have a lot of great fun experiences using tarot and just how to pick them up in general. Then the second thing is I stream on my Twitch on Sundays where I do free tarot readings there. So if that's something that is really interest to you or just want to come by and say hi, just go ahead and check it out at Victor_Lancaster on Twitch. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so as this follow-up for the last video, I want to make sure that I cover the two biggest things: reversal cards, and that's where we're going to start things off. What are reversal cards? What are the meanings behind them? Are they always negative? Why do some people do them and why some do not? The answer to that is that it comes down to your own personal style, and this is where you start to develop it when you start doing tarot. One of the things that I really do want to advise is that when you start to tackle down the form of reverse cards, some people will argue that it just gives you a better picture of what is happening to know kind of what is actually going on by giving you the aspects of the cards showing up in reverse. While some people feel like the cards upright on its own can give you all the information that you already need, especially if you're tapping in to that intuition, you shouldn't really need them. At the end of the day, it just comes down to your own personal style. For example, every card in tarot has both positive connotations as well as negative. There is not one card in the tarot deck, including the Tower, where it can be interpreted as both having positive aspects of it, as positive symbolisms, as well as some negative symbolisms behind it. Here, I'll give you a good example. How about the Fool card? I just love talking about the Fool. It's like my favorite card ever. The Fool card, just looking at it, it has both positive connotations and as well as some negative ones. Some people might argue, well, to me, the Fool has a lot of negative things. The man is about to literally walk off the cliff, even though the dog is warning it. This card has all wrongs in there. Where my argument is, all cards have pros and cons. For example, you can see that about the Fool card, but the Fool card also has the beginnings of a new journey. You have happiness in the face of the expression. You have a bright sunshine of a card. You have a beautiful background in the back that shows the journey that this person can take on. There's a lot of beauty that does come with it, a lot of positivity, especially if you're looking to start something new. Yes, it can come with all these negative connotations, but again, as you practice more into tarot, you're gonna start to learn aspects of how each card can have both positive things and as well as both negative things. And that just comes with how the cards start to speak to you through time and how each of these cards are gonna start to look to you as you start to draw them. Which also comes with my personal warning, in a sense, is that when you see other people pull cards and start doing tarot readings for other people, I know that when you're starting off, it can be very tempting for you to try to interpret what the cards are. But from my personal opinion, from my personal point of view, you should avoid doing that at all costs because, one, You're not the one doing the reading, and that's the most important thing. You're not the one pulling the cards. You're not the one doing the reading. You're not the one that the spirits are trying to communicate to deliver the message, or trying to read the energies around it for you to be able to deliver this message effectively. That's what the reader is trying to do, not you. And then the second of all is, when the cards are being pulled for that person, is trying to do the cards in a way that it speaks to that person that is doing the reading, not for you. For example, going back into the meaning of the Fool. Maybe for this particular reader, the Fool card is all about warning signs. It's about the red flags. It's about how things can look all pretty, but you're not paying attention to all the negative stuff. Where for me, when I pull the Fool card, it can mean those things, but I'm not looking for those. I'm looking for everything that is associated with it, both the positive and the negative that may come from it. And so some cards will speak differently to certain readers than it will to you. So first and foremost, warning about it, a little bit of a side tangent. That just tackles down a little bit of the topic of reversals. If you're trying to figure out if reversals work for you, these are some things that I want you to keep in mind if you decide to start tackling those down. The first thing is that if a card shows up in reverse, do not always consider it as a negative thing. It is very easy for somebody to look at, let's say, a card like the Lovers and say, oh, the Lovers came back in reverse. That must mean that a breakup is coming, or something where some sort of heartache is about to come, where I'm not going to have some sort of love aspect coming through. And the answer is that's not really how it works. When a card shows up in reverse, the first and foremost thing I want you to keep in mind is that the cards may be trying to tell you about a blockage of something, maybe a certain type of energy that the card would like to portray that is coming off negative. Not negative, but maybe coming across as not having that energy come through the way that it's supposed to. For example, going back into the Lovers card, if that kind of card shows up in reverse and they're asking about a career, it's not talking about you're going to fall in love with someone at work that they're not going to reciprocate, as an example. But rather, it can mean, you know what? Maybe you're not in the career that you would want to be. Maybe you are not completely attached into your job, where you wish you had more of that emotional attachment, where you feel like you're more fulfilled in your job. And maybe that's why the Lovers is showing up in reverse, because it's showing the lack of that emotional attachment. It's showing the lack of passion associated with something versus a breakup. Another thing to keep in mind with the reverse cards is that when you are looking into them, if you're looking at a card, let's say like the Five of Swords, it's already a very depressing card, because they're going through a lot of emotions and they're just looking at all of their losses. And if you're looking at the card in reverse, maybe that can be an enhancement of that feeling, or maybe that feeling taken to the next level. So for example, with the Five of Cups, if it shows up in reverse, maybe there's something else that is causing this depression, or maybe this feeling like you have lost a lot. And perhaps it's about identifying what that loss is, because you're having this mental block about recognizing the true cause. Perhaps it's just a deeper trauma, or perhaps it is something that is not visible to a lot of people that they're hiding within. I don't want you to feel like the reverse of a card is always a negative. Think of it as also seeing the lack of energy that the card is trying to portray in its positive aspect, or perhaps something that is blocking it from fulfilling the card being in upright position. Now we've covered through the reversal parts of it. Another thing that you can really consider is the yes or no questions. I know I have gotten plenty of questions where they want an answer as a yes or no. Will I get into the university of my dreams? Will I get the job that I already signed up for? Will I be able to make my trip? Things of that nature, very yes or no. And before you dive into answering these questions, I want you to do a very critical step, which is take a step back and start analyzing if this is a correct question to be asking a yes or no on. For example, there are some questions that warrant something a little bit deeper than a yes or no. For example, Does my significant other love me? Why are we even asking that? That's why they're your significant other. This is not a matter of a yes or no question. Perhaps this requires a little bit of more in-depth research. Why do you feel this way? Is there some sort of disconnect? Was there a big argument? Why are you even asking this? It should be already a yes if you guys are together. But if you have a suspicion that perhaps is a no, then you need to look into something else. For example, you need to start asking things. It's like, me and my, we had a big fight and I'm not sure how they're feeling about me right now or how I can mend the relationship. That's something that will warrant a little bit deeper look than, does my significant other love me? And as a reader, it is your responsibility to be able to discern some of these questions that are either poorly phrased, or some of these questions that have a yes or no that actually don't need to be a yes or no, but rather something a lot deeper than that, or questions that just have a very negative connotation to them, that you just need to address and try to clarify it and put more of a positive outlook into what they're looking to do versus sticking with the negative. Then let's just say, okay, you did all your discernment. Now it's time to, how do I do a yes or no question? This is more of where you start to develop your own style. I'm just going to suggest one example of how you can go about it. There are some cards in tarot that display more of a positive meaning and some of them that display more of a negative meaning. You can go about it by doing that, by just drawing a card and seeing if the card is more of a negative or a positive. However, there may be some cards that kind of stride the line right in the middle that are neither positive nor negative, that perhaps depending on what you are looking or asking, it can come off as one way or another. One way that you can go about it is that you can draw 3 cards. One way is that if you're working with reversals, if it shows up 2 out of the 3, it shows up upright, it means yes. If 2 of the 3 shows up in reverse, it can mean a no. Another way you can do it is through odds and evens. Evens can mean a positive, drawing 3 cards, 2 out of the 3. If it's a positive result, then it's positive. If it's a negative, then it shows up negative. You can do it based on 2 out of 3 cards, or it can be based on the sum of the cards by adding the numbers. Then you can put it down as a negative. Again, this is the part where you start to develop your own style. There is no right or wrong. Just know that once you start to experiment with a style, and that's the one that you feel more drawn to, stick to it all the time, because if guides or energies are trying to communicate a specific answer and then you change things up last minute, even though it's not your style, try to figure out why you changed it and maybe why you're not sticking to what you want to, and is this the right time to do so? That's something to always keep in mind. The last thing that I want to cover for this video, this is a huge disclaimer, is doing readings for yourself versus doing readings for others. When doing readings for yourself, it can be very difficult because you are not a third person that is being objective about your situation. And sometimes it can be extremely difficult for you to remove your own feelings, your own biases, your own points of view about certain things based on what you're going to draw. So that is the first and foremost thing that I just want to get out there, that you're going to have to do as best as possible to remove yourself objectively from what you're trying to ask and try to view it as an objective as possible. And just make sure that whenever you do your reading, that you are open to whatever the answer is not going to be. If you already have an inclined bias that the answer is going to show up in one way, or you want it to be one way, for example, should I talk to my crush today? Then you want to be extremely objective, that if the cards are telling you one thing, that is exactly the message that you're supposed to receive, and not try to twist it into some other way. Imagine that you're reading this for somebody else. What would that reading be for that person? And just try to take that on as your own. Be very mindful of that. That's the toughest part. But if you're able to remove all of these opinions and biases and such, is going to be really helpful. And that also is going to be very helpful when you go and do readings for other people. You need to be able to remove your biases, your own personal points of view, your opinions out of a lot of things to make sure that you're able to deliver the message in a very objective manner, because it's going to be most received in that way, because you putting your own twist into how the message needs to be to kind of fit your own bias is never going to be a really good way for you to succeed either. The other thing is now doing readings for others. Now, if they are your friends, we're going back into the conversation about bias. If there's something that you're really wanting to have for your friend, if there's something that you want them to experience or something that you wish for them to do, it is not your job to twist the interpretation of the cards that show up to fit your own personal bias. This is something that you have to objectively remove yourself from. If the cards are aligning to what your opinion is one thing, but you trying to make it work out in your head that it should be that particular way, that's kind of where you need to do a very huge stop and really analyze your true intentions behind these readings, because at the end of the day, tarot should be for helping yourself and helping others around you, not to get your own agenda across. Then the other thing is that as much as you want to be objective, go into that approach when you do a reading for family or friends that you are sitting across with. The last thing that I do want to cover is doing readings for absent friends or absent people. What does that mean? It means that if you're trying to do a reading for someone who's not physically present, how does that work? For example, when I do my readings online through Twitch, I have the consent of the person from the other side to do a reading for them. It is just a reading like everything else. You don't need to have somebody cut your deck or shuffle it or handle it in any way for that reading to come across accurately. It is all about your intent and purpose behind that deck and behind that reading that is gonna come across as objective as possible for that message to be delivered to that person. One warning that I do want to have is about the moral compass that comes around this, because there may be some people that may want to know things about somebody else without their knowledge, or someone who is not there. For example, how can my boyfriend get along better with my family? It's none of your business. Even though you guys may be in the same relationship, he's not the one asking the question. They're not the one who is coming to you for an answer. That, to me, personally, it is snooping, and that's kind of where you have to draw a moral compass in if that's going to be acceptable to you, and what is going to be acceptable to you, especially if someone is not present for that particular reading that you're wanting to know. For example, what is my boyfriend doing right now? Or playful things like that can mean one thing, but if you are trying to get into other people's business, like, will person A and person B break up? That's really none of your business, and that is something that you need to be very careful of. Really think of the golden rule when it comes to this, and also think how this line that you're trying to draw on this moral compass of yours, how is that going to play out when it's also inconvenient for you? You have to make sure that you're sticking to this as close to your heart as possible. There is a huge difference when somebody else asks to do something on their behalf, like a proxy. That's very different. And I have had situations like that. Because as far as my understanding goes, if that third party person already has given the middle person a consent to ask on their behalf, that's one thing. And if that person in the middle is lying, then karma is going to come back to them, not to you. I'm okay with that. But just be very mindful and thoughtful of things like this. This is a big reason even for myself. I don't like to do entertainment readings for celebrities or noteworthy people or people that are on the news or things like that, just because I don't like to be the person that does readings when I don't have consent from somebody else that is being read on. That's just a personal thing. But again, whatever you feel comfortable people doing for you or towards you, then perhaps that's your compass right there. Whatever that golden rule is going to fall on you. Do unto others as you want them doing unto you. All right, so I know we covered a lot more things in regards to how to go about doing these tarot readings. I hope this also sheds a little bit more light into some of the things that you can expect as you go about doing readings, especially just kind of getting things started off. I specifically did not want to cover in regards to how to monetize tarot or things of that nature, because that just follows along the last thing that I just talked about, which is more of your moral compass and kind of where you lie on that. So that's something for you to decipher. This is not something for me to go and tell you about. I have my own feelings and I have my own opinions about certain things, but that does not mean that it has to be for everybody. So just be very mindful of that. And as we approach in this third video, if you are a shy person like myself is in real life, I'm gonna be doing almost like a last few notes, and then we're gonna do a mock reading towards me as I give full consent for you to flip cards for me as you want to practice or as you want to hone in on some of these skills, and then I'll be able to share some answers about some of these questions that I'm asking towards the end of the video, so this way you can figure out how accurate you were. So it should be kind of helpful if you're trying to start off, or you just want to get a head start into maybe how to do tarot readings, or maybe experiment with something new. You can consider this a very safe space for you to be able to hone in those skills and just have fun. So without further ado, thank you so much to everyone, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.